right, so guys, welcome to Movers and Shakers Unlimited. I'm honored to have a special guest, Tyler Main, with me. How you doing, Tyler?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing great. First things first. Reason for setting up the interview initially, I wanted to, despite the lack of normalcy in terms of the environment that we're in currently, I wanted to still bring some normalcy and touch base with you because I know that you're scheduled to be a guest at SC Comicon. So with that being said, I know there are plenty of opportunities to go to various events throughout the country, throughout the world, I'm sure. So what was it about SC Comicon that drew you?
Yeah, it's close to home. I just moved to Atlanta area, and it's a nice little drive, so I don't have to get on a plane and deal with all of that.
So my next question is, you're in I feel like of many of the actors out there, you're in a unique category in that your career didn't start as an actor. It started, you were wrestling prior to that. So I just love to know, like, how did that transition happen, or I should say, was that always a plan for you, or did it happen kind of serendipitously?
It always was a plan. I always wanted to get into the action films. When I was a kid, I grew up in Canada, and I was watching Stampede Wrestling Saturday mornings. And then I'd go straight into the action films, Schwarzenegger and Rambo and all of those, and wanted to duplicate that. I was lucky enough to get into the pro wrestling, wrestled for 11 and a half years, and how I got my first acting gig, I was wrestling in Mexico. Have you ever seen any of those Mexican wrestling movies?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I got asked to do one. I played an intergalactic vampire in the 80s, but I said, look, I don't speak Spanish, so they go, don't worry about it. We're going to dub you. It'll be great. So I'm like, okay. Ended up doing that film and realized it was a lot better than getting dropped on my head. So I was like, okay, I'm in.
All right, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that's a great jumping off point to my next question is, obviously outside of the films that you had the opportunity to be a part of and that you starred in, one of the main ones that I know you get recognized for a lot outside of Halloween is X-Men, obviously, and outside of maybe Blade, I know Blade doesn't really get as much credit, and X-Men gets a lot of credit for it. But be that as it may, X-Men was one of those forefathers, so to speak, of a lot of what we're seeing now. So, can you talk a bit about that and initially being a part of that first film? Considering what superhero films had been or what they were perceived to be up to that point prior to X-Men or Blade, however way you shape it.
Yeah, like with X-Men, it was the first one to really bring it into the big mainstream and bring the superhero movies back through Marvel. I was lucky enough. When I was wrestling, I was tagged with Kevin Nash, and they asked me to come in and talk to them about doing the stunts and stuff for the X-Men, and then they decided they wanted me to do the Sabretooth role. So I was like, oh, great, here we go. And it just all worked out good. Knock on wood, I was able to hang up my wrestling boots and transition into the film. And I've been very lucky, like with starting with the X-Men and being Sabretooth and working with all those great people, going into Troy with Brad Pitt and the Scorpion King with The Rock, and
of course,
and then the Halloweens, which then led to me opening up my own production company, which is pretty cool too.
Absolutely, and that actually brings me to what we're seeing behind you of Penance Lane,
Yeah.
the latest film. So I'd love to know, more about, that film. I know you're starring in it, but you're also producing it as well. So can you,
Right.
tell folks a little bit, about this film?
Yeah, it just dropped actually on Tuesday on
Right.
iTunes and everything and all the platforms. And it's about the character Crimson Matthews, who's goes to this small town to try and take care of some business for his old cellmate in prison. And all hell breaks loose in this one house, and the townspeople all get involved. So it's kind of like me against the town. It was no big deal. It's all good.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, uh, keep with that in mind. As you say, you have, your production company. In putting together, your films. What would you say? It seems like Penance Film would be will fall into that category. But what is it specifically that you look for when you're trying to get films off the ground?
Yeah, well, our first film that we did was Compound Fracture that my wife and I wrote and
Right.
produced and that. But in the beginning, I realized we wanted to start small and build on it, because anybody that's ever done a feature film, they realize it's a big undertaking. I mean, if you're biting off a lot, and if you get it to the point where it's done and out, people understand just how tough it is. So the first one we wanted smaller, was contained in one house, smaller locations. This one is a little bit bigger. We have the town and the house and surrounding areas. And then for the next one we're wanting to do is a TV series called The Last Spartan that we're working on now. So it's just, we're trying to keep the ball rolling and grow and just keep things moving forward. Walk
Awesome,
before
man.
we run.
Awesome. And jumping off of that further, in the film, like it has an impressive, I have to say, it has an impressive, group of actors in the film. So how was that able to come about and, amassing, the talent that you have for that film?
Yeah, I mean, while Scout, like for Penance Lane, Scout and I had worked together. I think this is our fourth film together. So I knew that call was going to be made. And then I'm friends with John Schneider. So I said, hey, love you to come and play. And he agreed to. And then just picked up the old Rolodex and called Booker and Dallas from the old wrestling days and said, hey, come on, guys, you want to be in a movie? And of course, everybody jumped on board. And so it was calling a lot of favors and putting the right cast together. And Daniel Roebuck was in our first one, Compound Fracture. So, it just made sense to bring him back and play. Because when you're going through, I kind of equate making a movie like going through the trenches, and you want to go through the trenches with people that trust, and can count on. And
Absolutely.
all those actors I knew, they'd be able to bring it and do it and take care of business. So.
Gotcha. Now, like as I was stating at the beginning, of this chat is, the interesting day and age that we live in right now, and we're all going through right now. So with that being said, I'm always fascinated to know, like, what does the day-to-day look like now? As someone who's in the industry, making films, acting in films. What does that currently look like now? I'm assuming there's a lot of Zooming that goes into play, kind of like what we're doing now, or perhaps it's just phone calls or what have you. I'm just fascinated to know, especially with promoting films as well.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
kind of a tricky scenario.
Yeah, it is. It's with this day and age, we're running a lot of our campaign off of the internet and dealing with that, and that's Renee, my wife, that's dealing with a lot of that stuff. As far as me to try and keep the business moving forward, it's, Zoom calls, a lot of phone calls. But as of right now, things are pretty much shut down, and it's just kind of, you're taking real baby steps forward just to try and figure stuff out. I mean, it's a good time for doing a VOD release because you've got captive audiences. So, people are looking for things to do.
Absolutely.
But as far as, I mean, who knows when things are going to open up and get back to normal, and is there going to be a normal? There's going to be a new normal. So it's just going to depend on what that is.
Exactly. So with all that in mind, I guess my last question to you, has that, and I'm assuming that the answer is yes, but I'm just curious how that shapes the other commitments that you have. So outside of, obviously producing films, starring in different projects. The reason why we, initially set up this chat is the fact that, you attend various cons. So, have you been able to still resume a part of your itinerary per se, in that regard, where a lot of it's being shifted digitally, or has a lot of them basically just been, as you said, just put on pause completely?
Yeah, it's the convention scene's put on pause completely for now. I've had some that are trying to shift and looking for new dates. Some have just completely shut down for the year. But it's something that really no one knows when they're going to be able to get, amass in big groups again. So it's just all up in the air for stuff like that. Luckily, before this all happened, I've been, lucky enough to be working quite a bit. I had Playing with Fire come out last year with John Cena. And I just did a TV series called Jupiter's Legacy for Netflix that'll be coming out in a little bit. So, I've been lucky enough to keep busy and keep things going and forward momentum and stuff. But, as far as when productions are going to be up and running, as far as when cons are going to be fully, the way they were, they might have to spread the lines out a little bit, but it's it's a good thing for people to be able to interact with us, because and it's great for us, and we realize, I realize that without the fans, I wouldn't have a career. So I learned that back in the wrestling days, and that's why I like going to these conventions, to meet the fans and put a little bit of brightness in their day, and it's a fun thing for everybody.
Absolutely. Well, Tyler, thank you. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on. And with everything that's been going on, I'm sure things are still crazy busy in terms of logistics, things moving around and shifting, as we were just saying. Can you tell folks where they can find you? All plugs on those social medias.
Yeah, we have the movie that's out. It's PENANCELANE.com. I'm at The Real Tyler Main on Instagram, Tyler Main on Facebook and Twitters. So, check it all out. My company's Main Entertainment. And please give us a follow.
All right, there you guys have it. Again, special guest Tyler Main, your host Brandon Troy. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Brandon.
Absolutely.